Marcus had been pushing a mop across the gleaming floors of Westbrook Tower for 3 years, and in that time he'd become invisible, the kind of invisible that stung every single day. Nobody noticed him. Nobody asked his name. He was just the man in the gray uniform, the one who appeared in the evening when everyone else left and disappeared again before the sun came up. But Marcus didn't mind being unseen by the executives in their corner offices. What broke his heart was being unseen at home, where his 6-year-old daughter Emma waited for him each night with questions he sometimes didn't have answers to. How do you explain to a child that the accident that took her eyesight was something they both had to learn to survive together? How do you tell her that Daddy is scared too? If you believe in the power of kindness and second chances, I'm asking you right now to hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and share this video with someone who needs to hear that hope still exists in this world. Let's build a community that lifts each other up. Thank you. Marcus had always loved music before the world became too heavy for such things. In his younger days, before Emma's mother left, before bills and hospital visits and endless nights of worry, he'd played piano at a local bar to make extra money. His fingers had danced across the keys with a kind of joy that felt like flying. But those days felt like they belonged to another person now, another version of Marcus who had the luxury of caring about beautiful things. Now his hands were rough and calloused from years of cleaning, and his heart was too tired to remember melodies. One evening, as Marcus pushed his cart down the 42nd floor toward the executive offices, he heard something that stopped him cold. It was music, beautiful, delicate piano music drifting from one of the conference rooms. His body moved before his mind could catch up, drawn toward the sound like a plant turning toward sunlight. There, sitting at a baby grand piano that gleamed under the soft lighting, was a young girl with thick dark glasses covering her eyes. Her small fingers moved across the keys hesitantly, making mistakes, stopping, starting again, her tiny face twisted in concentration. Behind her stood a woman in an expensive suit, arms crossed, watching with an expression so cold it seemed to lower the temperature in the room. The woman, who Marcus would later learn was Victoria Chen, the CEO of the company, spoke in a clipped, tired voice. Again. And don't make those same mistakes this time. The girl flinched at the harshness in her mother's tone, but said nothing. She began again, and Marcus heard the fear in every note, the desperate desire to please someone who seemed determined not to be pleased. The girl's name was Sophie, Marcus would learn, and she had been born without sight. She was brilliantly intelligent. Her mother had once boasted to a colleague within earshot of Marcus's mop, as if intelligence could somehow compensate for the darkness Sophie lived in every day. Marcus didn't mean to speak. He'd spent 3 years being silent, invisible, staying in his lane. But something inside him broke open that evening. She has beautiful potential, he heard himself say, stepping forward hesitantly. Victoria's eyes went sharp and cutting as she turned to him. The janitorial staff shouldn't be in here. But Sophie's head turned toward the sound of his voice with such curiosity, such hunger for connection, that Marcus pressed on despite the ice in her mother's gaze. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll get back to work. It's just, your daughter has real talent. It just needs a different kind of attention. He didn't say what he was thinking, that the girl's playing was filled with tension and fear, that her fingers were stiff with anxiety, that what she needed wasn't perfect execution. It was permission to feel safe. Victoria stared at him for a long moment, and he thought she might have him fired. Instead, she turned back to Sophie. Practice for another hour. Don't come down until you've done it perfectly. And she left the room, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Marcus was about to leave as well, to respect the boundary he'd just crossed, when Sophie's small voice called out to him. Will you stay? Just for a minute? Those 7 words changed everything. Over the following weeks, Marcus found reasons to work the piano room on nights when Sophie was there. He started small, just sitting nearby, working quietly so she wouldn't feel pressured, but gradually, Sophie began asking him questions. What did he do? Did he like music? Could he play? One night he couldn't resist. He sat at the piano beside Sophie and played something simple and beautiful, something that had nothing to do with perfection and everything to do with feeling. When he finished, Sophie's small hand found his. "That was so beautiful," she whispered. "It didn't sound like my mom's music." It sounded happy. And Marcus's eyes filled with tears because she was right. Victoria's approach to piano was about achievement and control. His was about liberation. Victoria Chen watched all of this from outside the conference room, hidden in the shadows of the hallway, her carefully constructed world shifting on its foundation. She'd been a cold mother because she believed coldness built strength. She'd pushed Sophie toward perfection because she was terrified of the world's cruelty toward her disabled daughter. But watching Marcus, this invisible man, this single father who had nothing, teach her daughter not just piano but joy, she began to understand what she'd been doing wrong. He showed Sophie that her blindness wasn't something to overcome through punishment. It was simply part of who she was, and her talent existed independent of what she could see. He played for her in ways that didn't require sight, that celebrated the other four senses, that made Sophie feel not broken, but brilliant. Emma, Marcus's daughter, eventually met Sophie during an afternoon when Marcus brought her to the office while his regular childcare fell through. The two girls, one blind by birth, one sighted but lonely, became friends instantly. They played together, laughed together, and Emma found in Sophie a mirror of her own strength. Sophie found in Emma someone who treated her blindness as completely ordinary, the way children do with each other when adults haven't taught them different. One evening, Victoria came into the piano room and simply sat down to listen. Marcus noticed her then, not the CEO, but a mother trying to change. "I'm sorry," she said when the music stopped. "I've been so afraid for her that I forgot to let her be happy. I've been so focused on fixing what I thought was broken that I forgot to see what was beautiful." Marcus simply nodded, understanding that sometimes the most powerful apologies need no response, just acknowledgement. Victoria looked at her daughter's glowing face and understood that real strength isn't built through fear and control. It's built through love, acceptance, and someone believing in you enough to let you fly. The story could have ended with Marcus being promoted, with him finally being seen and valued by people who mattered in the corporate world. But the real transformation was quieter and more profound. Victoria began spending evenings in the piano room not to criticize, but to listen, to learn from her daughter, to learn from Marcus how to parent with gentleness. She hired additional music teachers for Sophie, but always asked them to approach their teaching the way Marcus did, with patience, celebration of effort over perfection, and an understanding that Sophie's blindness didn't limit her potential. It simply shaped it differently. Marcus's visible status in the building changed too. People started greeting him by name. Children of executives asked if they could study music with him. He began giving informal lessons in the evenings, slowly building something that felt like a second chance at his dreams. But more importantly, his life at home changed. Emma saw her father beginning to smile again, to hum while he worked, to remember that there was joy in the world worth reaching for. She watched her father transform a stranger's daughter's life and understood that kindness was the most powerful force she knew. If this story has touched your heart, if you believe that one person's kindness can change another person's entire world, I'm asking you to please engage with this video. Like it, comment below, and tell us about a time when someone believed in you when you didn't believe in yourself. Share this with someone who needs to remember that their circumstances don't define their future. And please, subscribe to this channel so we can continue bringing you stories that remind us of our own humanity. Months later, Sophie performed her first piano recital, not for perfection, but for pure love of music. As she played, her small fingers moving with confidence and joy across the keys, every person in that auditorium understood they were witnessing something sacred. Victoria sat in the front row with tears streaming down her face, not because her daughter was flawless, but because her daughter was finally free. And Marcus, sitting beside her, held Emma's hand and understood that sometimes the most profound victories aren't the ones people celebrate in corner offices. They're the ones that happen in quiet piano rooms, when one broken person chooses to help fix another, and in doing so, discovers that they were never broken at all. Please comment below and tell us, I choose kindness too.